Hey everybody, Luigi Scarcelli here. Welcome to Saturday Night Special. We've got a great show for you. Last night on Friday PM, we actually did a show, Remembering the Icons. We talked a little bit about the famous people that passed away this week, which was pretty shocking. And it was kind of touched people on all different generations, mostly people my generation and up. But because of the fact that it was such a kind of a rattling to everybody with pop culture, I wanted to bring on our first guest tonight. He's a pop culture expert, I like to say. He has a show on our network, and it's a pretty well-known podcast called Release Date Rewind. Mark J. Parker is here, and we're going to talk a little bit about kind of this week and just his show and everything else. So, hey, Mark, how you doing, sir?
Hey, Luigi, thank you so much for this. This is great. So nice to see you. Although I know it's been a crazy, shocking week with these surprise celebrity deaths. I mean, it's a weird time.
Yes, yes. I mean, it seems like it kind of comes out of nowhere. And it was funny because I was actually talking to a few people because I had seen that first Malcolm-Jamal Warner from The Cosby Show passed away. And then after that, Ozzy Osbourne. And I thought, well, who's the third person going to be? And then I wonder if you thought the same thing. And
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking. I was like, wait, did someone else just recently pass away? Because it seems like these things often happen in threes, right? So I was like racking my brain. I'm like, did someone pass away last week? And then we had Hulk Hogan. So yeah, it's just like a really weird time, and I only think it's going to continue like this, where we have so many stars from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, that just so many celebrities. So it's only going to continue, I guess, that we're going to, say goodbye to some of the greats, right?
yeah, and it's an interesting time. Again, I agree because so many of the people that you and I of two kind of generations grew up with, as we'll talk about, like the Osbournes, they were synonymous with my generation, then with yours, because people kind of keep coming back and they have a nostalgia tour. It was kind of funny, like when I was a kid, my folks brought me to see the Monkees, and they were playing a lot. And when I was a kid in the '80s, for
Yeah.
all of that, it was kind of like the Beatles and all the rest of it. But then I started seeing the Monkees back when they were younger that were on TV. And so for your generation, we're going to talk about that in a minute, was like the Osbournes. You didn't know Ozzy Osbourne as a heavy metal musician as much as a
Right.
TV star. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Black Sabbath, you knew he was a rock star, but I mean, I graduated high school 20 years ago, this like last month. So that's kind of crazy and freaky to think about. But yeah, I mean, in the early 2000s, the Osbournes was a massive show. So yeah, my age group knew Ozzy more for the reality show because that was still the early days of reality TV as we know it. Survivor had started in 2000. I think the Osbourne started in 2002. So he was sort of like America's dad, for a lot of us. And of course, yeah, we knew that he was this rock star, the Prince of Darkness, but we really knew him as like this kind of comedy king because he was such an oddball with Sharon, with Kelly, with Jack, his family. So, yeah, that was a big bummer to hear. He was only 76. I mean, you hear a lot of people die in their 70s, but it's just like that still seems kind of young.
It does, yeah. And what's funny in kind of like a full circle way is from my generation, the America's Dad was Bill Cosby, who
Wow.
his son, on the show, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was the first person who passed away, which once again is funny because it kind of goes full circle. We were talking about last night was that when I was a kid, a friend of my family's was the tour manager for a lot of big rock and roll bands. So I got to
Oh,
go see,
wow.
yeah, all these different folks. And he was the tour manager for both Ozzy Osbourne and James Taylor. And he
Oh,
said
wow.
that James Taylor, always like the nice guy in front of the camera, was not very easy to work with, not very nice behind the scenes. But Ozzy Osbourne, who had this crazy reputation, was the nicest guy behind the scenes. And yeah, it
Oh,
was
I
a really
love
down to
that.
earth guy. What's interesting is it's kind of like you're saying, like, and now we know with Bill Cosby, like he was America's dad out front, but he had a lot of demons as well, as we've seen.
Oh, of course. We know.
Right.
Yeah, that's a major fall from grace. That's a big bummer.
Yeah.
But I love that Ozzy was actually a nice guy. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Oh,
such
yeah.
a surprise, right?
Yeah, and everybody who was around him had said he's a nice, down to earth guy, easygoing. So then with Hulk Hogan, that really would have been probably not your time, I would guess.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan, another reality star. 'Cause
Yeah, exactly. That's
my
right.
age group
Yeah.
kind of knew him more from that, but I really remember him most from his cameo in the Gremlins 2, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
The movie
Yeah.
The Gremlins, because he was hugely popular, in the 80s and 90s, of course. But yeah, that's a big surprise. I mean, he really kind of lost a lot of fans because of his
Yeah.
political leanings these last few
Right.
years, So it was interesting seeing a lot of social media banter about him, how, not as loving memoriams
Yes.
as Malcolm and Ozzy, but yeah, another mega celebrity from the past. Just wild. These three, and also it's so interesting. These three were kings of their different departments in entertainment.
Yes, exactly. Well, the funny thing about Hulk Hogan was that he had so much more notoriety after wrestling, in a sense, because it's kind of interesting. Like, he moved to Florida, and kind of like nothing good ever happens in Florida, right? And so his son was speed racing and crashed his car, and a lot of people got injured.
right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And then he had a kind of a sex tape scandal and a couple other things where he had caught on tape saying some nasty words towards
Right.
people of a different race. So he
Right.
got himself in so many different things. And then, unfortunately, with the stuff with Trump, it alienated a lot of people who just are not really wanting to see their heroes get all political. And but so he had a kind of a crazy life. But when you were talking about Gremlins 2, it reminded me a little bit about talking about your show because you guys delve into like movies. You take one or two movies per show. Can you tell the folks a little about Release Date Rewind, which is a show that's on every Friday night right before my show, Friday p.m. And it's also a very successful podcast, which I'd love for you to tell people about. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Luigi.
Sure.
Yeah, so yeah, Release Date Rewind. It's can you believe I started it in September 2020? So we're coming up on almost 5 years, which is wild. I'm a little behind. Life has been lifing, but yeah, I bring on different friends. They might be friends I grew up with, or friends I've met in the business, or other podcasters. Luigi, you got to come on sometime. I got to get you on.
That'd be great.
But we rave about movies of the past that we love. They could be Oscar winners, or they could be like kind of fun, dumb, cult classics that we just love. And each film is brought up because it's celebrating a milestone anniversary. So not just like, oh, this came out 7 years ago. I usually start with 20 years all the way up to 75. I don't know if I've talked about any films that are turning 75. I think. I can't remember. I think the oldest one was Singing in the Rain, which just turned a couple years ago. 60, was it? Or no, it might have been 70. Wow. Anyway, but yeah, a lot of 80s movies, a lot of 90s, 70s as well. We don't get too way back in the 50s like Singing in the Rain. That's kind of special. But yeah, and just nerd out about these movies, why we love them, how they have held up, any trivia, any behind the scenes stuff with the actors, with the crew, coming up very soon. I'm about to release my 100th episode, which is all about the Goonies and Return to Oz, a fun little 1985 double feature. But I have Jaws coming up, Clueless. So yeah, all sorts of genres, everything from horror to comedy to action. I'm an equal opportunity podcaster.
Podcast. Now, where are the best ways for people? Best ways, Spotify, iTunes for the podcast.
Yeah.
And do you do other? Yeah.
It's on exactly what you said, Luigi. Spotify and Apple Podcasts are the big ones, but it's pretty much on any podcast app. So if you like other stuff, it's on there through Straw Hut Media, my distributor. And then it's on YouTube. A lot of people love to watch podcasts. I'm not really one of them. I'm more like
Right.
I'm more like listen while I'm driving or cleaning or whatever. But people love to watch. So videos are on YouTube, and of course also on Portland Media Center here, which is so nice. Thanks, guys. But yeah, and some episodes are long because we get chatty.
Yeah.
My last episode before this 100th one was House of Wax with Paris Hilton from 20 years ago, which people make fun of, but actually it's a really good horror movie. But man, my friend Kit and I, we could just chat for hours. So, every episode's a little different.
Now, what I like about it, and do you do this on a lot of them, where you kind of talk about what was going on in that year? And yeah, right.
Oh yeah, I try. I try to like, even music, like popular songs, popular TV shows, or the cost of a house, or who the president was. So I like to kind of set the scene. And I maybe it's nerdy of me. I like to kind of know, what was going on at this time, especially in the 90s with like OJ or like just popular Bill Clinton, popular news items what was like being talked about as this movie was coming out or as this TV show was being released. Cause sometimes we talk about TV as well. But yeah, and it's also funny, Luigi, speaking of TV, with Malcolm-Jamal Warner, I just saw a clip that apparently he was the very first guest on Live with Regis. And back then, I guess it was Regis and Kathy Lee. I worked on it on the show when it was Regis and Kelly, but Kelly was on the air this week saying that he was the very first guest on that show. So that's also just like where my pop culture brain goes, that it's like, oh man, like our beloved Huxtable was also the first, special celebrity guest on a major talk show that's still, on the air in a different, iteration. But just I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and he was one of the guys that was able to navigate through all of it. We didn't see him in everything. It wasn't like he was a Will Smith or something.
Right.
But he steadily worked. We never really heard about a lot of problems. It goes to show you that it's like, it's dangerous swimming out in the ocean, I guess, in Costa Rica or something. That was
I mean, that's a freaky thing. Oh my God, accidental drowning. It's crazy because that's how he passed. Ozzy passed from Parkinson's complications, I believe. And then how did Hulk pass?
So I believe he had a bad heart.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing with him is that, he was a big steroid user. His body was pretty broken down. A lot of those guys in that sport are that they just don't last that long, because I was talking to somebody about that earlier. Unfortunately, with steroid, and it's no big secret that he used a lot of steroids. Your heart is also a muscle, so it will also make your heart like steroided, which is not good for it. So steroids don't really like discriminate what muscle to pick. They don't just say, hey, let's make the biceps bigger. They make your head bigger and all these things. And so yeah, he had he'd had a tough few years. He was really broken down. But yeah, well, it was funny talking about the pop culture was Kelly. I don't know if you know this, but where I know her from, which was so interesting, was when I was a kid, I used to watch a show called Dance Party USA.
Wow.
So it was the USA Network at the beginnings of it, had their own little American Bandstand show in Philadelphia. And she was one of the dancers on that show.
That's amazing. Yeah, she's a Philly girl because I grew up outside of Philly. So I knew that, but that is so funny, Luigi.
Yeah,
so she was
it's kind of the deep dive. And when I was a kid, I would see it. She had the big palmed hair. And then she kind of went from being on that as one of the featured dancers to being on soaps, to being on, all the way up. But I thought it was kind of interesting where it's like, that's a whole other show for us sometime to talk about, was like the beginnings of some of these TV things. But let me ask you one or two quick more questions. I know you can't stay up too late.
No worries. Yeah.
What do you like now? Are you watching anything that you're excited about?
Oh gosh, what a good question. Well, I'm like behind on everything. Oh my God, spoilers are just everywhere. But what I'm watching right now, well, I just finished the latest season of Hacks on HBO Max, a really well-made, funny comedy. It's a dramedy because some of the scenes are really dramatic and you gasp. But that is a big award winner with Jean Smart. Okay. She's won the Emmy for that pretty much every year. But Hacks is an amazing comedy. And this last season, season 4 that just aired, is all about late night, which is also interesting, talking about Stephen Colbert and just the state of late night. So it's almost like they were able to kind of like just kind of guess what was coming for late night, because that's a really interesting topic as well. But yeah, Hacks is good. What else am I watching? I like my reality TV. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Gosh, what else is popular right now, Luigi? I'm so behind. I'm watching a little bit of And Just Like That. I am a Sex and the City boy.
Sex and the City.
It's not a great show, but
Yeah.
like, you can't look away. I mean, you got to still watch your characters through the years and see what they're up to, you know? But I have such a long list. I literally now have a list on my phone of all the movies and shows I got to watch.
Well, let's.
What about you? Are you watching anything
Yeah,
good?
I was telling my co-producer Warren that I was watching. I'm getting through the last of the Squid Game. It was another one of those, wilder shows.
Yeah.
I feel like, it's hard to remember too. I mean, so what happened with me was that once I got kind of hooked on the YouTube on your TV, and
Oh
you
yeah.
go down the YouTube rabbit hole for 15 minutes at a time here and there. Nowadays, I watch a lot of like body cam footage of like
Oh
drunk
yeah.
people getting pulled over and like I mean that's like the ultimate reality TV where you see
Oh yeah.
unfiltered crazy folks.
Riveting.
Yeah, I mean I think there's been a couple of good movies. I'd have to rack my brain. But speaking of movies, I also want to ask you: are you doing a movie coming up, or do you have one recently? Because I know you've done a lot of films.
Yeah. Yeah. I produce films as well. Let's see. Actually, I have a few things kind of in various stages, but yeah, my latest horror short, called The Stranger in the Snow. We shot it in Bangor last year, like late winter, early spring. It was a freak blizzard in like late March of 2024. So we filmed it back then. It's all done. So that's premiering in a couple weeks in LA at the Midsummer Scream Film Festival. And then the week after, it'll be at Vacationland, which you should go to, Luigi. Great festival, Vacationland Film Festival in Biddeford. That's going to be like, I think it's like from August 21st to 24th, I believe. So yeah, that's now entering the festival circuit. I wrote, directed, produced. I was hired by Greg Pomeroy, who you
Yeah,
know as
right.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Greg brought me on to produce with him an indie TV pilot called Murder Loves Company, a really fun, silly murder comedy. So we shot that a couple months ago. I'm starting to work on that in post, so that'll be the next thing. But yeah, those are the big things. I have other ideas. I always got something going on. I'll shoot something later this year, another horror thing. So yeah, the goal is to eventually have enough shorts of mine to do maybe an anthology film. Because shorts, as we know, don't make really much money at all. But a feature film of different shorts could be, something that people might want to
Yeah, and I always think
some money on.
Yeah, I think they should bring those back. I was talking to somebody about that today in the sense that it's like Tales from the Crypt or
Oh,
like
yeah.
the Twilight Zone. And it also makes a lot more sense when you are like us as low budget filmmakers. You
Right.
can't really afford to, house a bunch of actors for 2 months and pay them and all that. So you need to work in, picket things and
Totally.
yeah, getting groups together and okay, we'll get this and then kind of having a through line. And I
Yes.
know a lot of your horror movies, because we talked a few years ago, actually
Yeah.
on the show, Friday PM. I felt like there was a lot of really kind of brilliant thematics in the horror genre. If you know a lot about horror movies and the idea of the outsider, that's often the villain in it. And some different folks kind of flip the script more and more. And I feel like that's a theme that you've done very well. Yep.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. The outsider can be the villain or the outsider lately, and maybe always, but especially in the last decade or so, the outsider's often like the lead, protagonist, like maybe getting into a situation like Get Out, So, yeah, and especially with some of my queer characters being in dangerous situations or feeling, these eyes on them. So yeah, that's a really interesting perspective for sure. But yeah, I've always loved the genre, and I feel like even though comedy's great and all the other genres are great, I just always gravitate towards thrillers and mysteries and horror. So yeah, so eventually at some point, once I have enough runtime, you'll see a feature anthology in the future. And I might be working with another local Maine filmmaker about another anthology. So we'll see. I got different ideas going on. You got to keep it fresh. We got to work on something, Luigi. I want to
Yeah.
work on some live movie on PMC or something. So we got to like join forces for real, because you're also a busy guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. It's like this studio here, we've done live shows like this. We've also done a sitcom that was here, but it was filmed over a certain amount of time, called Backstage.
Yeah.
But we had talked about that. That would be the best. This studio is so great for doing something live, moving the sets around, making it all work. Yeah, I think it is. It's ripe for it. Maybe this Christmas we could do that.
Yeah, if you want, I think that could be really fun. A good little challenge. It could be short. It doesn't need to be like a full 3-hour live musical, right?
No,
but
20 minutes.
Yeah, what's going on with your sitcom Backstage? Did you ever shoot more episodes?
No, we shot that. It was a pilot, and then it was centered around stand-up comedians in a comedy club. And I mean, there's ups and downs about using a lot of real stand-up comedians. Their hearts weren't in that part of it. It was me doing what we know as filmmakers, which is you try to get people and you kind of twist arms, you make them do it. But if they're just not like full on, and I've learned that, we've talked about that before a lot, about like really being specific about casting, because you can get people, but if they're not in it all the way, it just doesn't, it doesn't, the passion has to be there.
I hear you. Yeah, it's tough, because you're right, because especially with real comedians, they also have their other gigs, their other interests. But casting is so important. People forget how it's like half the project is really all about the casting.
And what we're doing now is behind where I'm at, we've really created the green screen area with the flooring and all that. So that's something I'm really excited about too, is like to be able to make a lot of things in different time frames using green screens and stuff. Yeah, so it's always cool.
That's great. Yeah. I feel like this is only the start for Portland Media Center. There's way more stuff to do in the future,
I agree. So I don't want to keep you up too much later. I know it's probably up past, it's a Saturday night. You might be staying up late.
Saturday night. I'm not going to bed yet, but it's getting kind of late. I'm going to turn on a movie. I actually, speaking of an old movie, I I borrowed from the library. Don't forget to borrow from your library, everybody. Remember from 20 years ago, I haven't seen it in years, but I just got in the mood for it. It just turned 20. Wedding Crashers with Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson. So I might pop that in and just revisit that, because it's been a very long time since I've seen that comedy.
And that's a classic movie. And that was like, Owen Wilson was a very reliable comedic character. Vince Vaughn had finally really, that and Dodgeball kind of were his way to get out of that rut of being the leading man, which he couldn't really quite get, because that wasn't really
in the late 90s. Vince Vaughn, people forget or don't even know, like, he was kind of trying to be, whether he wanted to or casting wanted him to kind of be the lead guy in a lot of dramas. He was doing more like serious stuff or dark comedies. So he really branched out.
He was like in some, like a Psycho one.
Oh, the Psycho remake. That was an interesting one.
And then because of Swingers, I think, and they had him in, it was like all those movies, and he's just kind of more of a comedic guy.
Oh, yeah.
But as far as I know, I do believe they are doing a Wedding Crashers 2.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, it could be really fun. I mean, from what I remember, that cast in the original, I mean, more than just those two. Then you had Bradley Cooper, you had Rachel McAdams, Isla Fisher. I mean, everyone was on their game. I mean, that's why I love doing my show, is like, you kind of forget, like, these movies were huge, and then, you move on to other things, but then you're like, whoa, like 2005, the summer of 2005 had like some good movies. Actually, this whole summer, across all the years between 85, 95, 2005, it's just like, wow, there is so much to choose from. If I made a decent amount of money on the podcast, I would just do that all the time and just make an episode a day. But there's not too much money in it yet. Maybe someday.
Well, what we were talking about was that it does seem like in those days there was those classic comedies. We don't see them anymore. And you wonder if it's because of like streaming and things where there's just so much of a glut of stuff. And it's kind of like, I was talking, I think, to Warren about this, of when I went to film school, we still had to cut film on a Steenbeck and tape it together and all this.
Wow.
And the theory of that was that it did create a really thought, versus like digital, where you can just cut and people overcut because it's so easy. It's like, what if we cut here? What if we cut there? And it doesn't have the deliberateness to it. And you wonder with that, like, everybody's getting a check, it seems like, in Hollywood to do something. It makes a lot more mediocrity, because it does feel like there isn't those great comedies anymore, because they aren't comedies at the theater, so they're not really striving. But I wonder. I mean, I wonder if we're in an age where it'll come back a little bit. But I was talking again to Warren about that. It's like he was saying at his age, he doesn't really remember seeing many movies at all as a kid. It's just, it gets less and less. And my brother's about your age, and he watches movies a bit, but certainly not as much as me. And you might be, you still might be a little bit closer to people who are older than you. Are a lot of people on your show the same age as you, and do they all like movies as much? Or is it?
Oh, yeah. Usually all my guests are also big movie fans, but it's all different ages. I'm trying to think, I've had a few people younger, but it's more around like my age, like late 30s to 40s to 50s. So yeah, I don't think I've had anyone in their 20s. I don't know if I could do that. I mean,
it's like
when they were a baby, I mean, we're talking about these movies, so it's like, maybe in the future, once they have some perspective,
But I just think it's there's so much more emphasis on other things than the movie genre that it does seem like, I'm wondering if it's a little bit of a dying art, because it's
it's a bummer because like I've actually been going to the movies more lately than I ever have. I'm like, for a while with COVID, I barely went, and now I'm going, like, I've gone a few times in the last month. But yeah, especially with comedies, it's like you're only going to see the comedies in the theater that are sequels. So like a Wedding Crashers 2 would be in theaters, I'm sure. But even Happy Gilmore 2 just came to Netflix this weekend. That's something else I want to check out, which is sort of surprising, but I know Adam Sandler has his deal with Netflix. So it's kind of like pre-existing deals. And then I'm sure they do all their research and data and know, like, okay, this will just be a streaming movie. But some movies you see in the theater and you're like, this could have just been streaming. This is not that good.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's tough. In one half of me feels for the movie theaters, but also the other part of me doesn't, because it's like, you guys all kind of did this to yourself. Like, the movie theater experience is not the best. It's a rare surprise when you're like, oh, actually, like, this was a good experience at the movie theater, But yeah, a lot of the streamers, I feel like it's nice to have so much content and film and TV, but at the same time, now we're kind of getting into the moment in life where we kind of can tell that this is so by the numbers. It's almost just like the streamer, template, that they're just kind of cutting, and, it's as if someone said, oh yeah, young people now need like 7 cuts per minute or whatever, you know what I mean? And so it's just like, I don't know.
It's almost like it's done by AI. Yeah, I mean, talking about the movie theater experience, because I remember during COVID, I would just say, like, I'm going to go see a movie, and I would run to a movie, and it was like I'd be the only person in the movie theater, and with hundreds of seats there. But it's then now I was driving by and I saw Freeport was a movie theater that hasn't come back in for a long time. So it's like it's an empty movie theater.
Nothing's there at all? No store took it over or anything?
No, it's still on that downstairs by Old Navy. So, but can you come back on another show? Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, let me know. Yeah, we can talk about this kind of stuff whenever you want. Yeah. And when I hear like a cool movie theater is like still just empty, I'm like, turn that into like a cinema lounge. I don't know. Just put in a TV. It doesn't even need to be a movie theater. There's so many cool ideas you can do with those spaces. It could be like a club, and you just play old movies on the screens. I mean, that'd be cool. I'd do it.
Let's go to Freeport and we'll talk to them, right?
Yeah, let's see. I
always forget Freeport's so much farther for you because you're in southern Maine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Freeport's another 20. Yeah, but I've seen it's a movie theater there. It's just been sitting empty for like quite a while now. So
terrible.
Yeah, terrible. But thank you so much for being on, and get some sleep. Don't stay up too late. And thanks again, Mark. I appreciate it, sir.
Thanks, Luigi. Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.